So good lunch is not really playing a bad role in the summit, right? Yeah, a little about me. I'm Emmanuel. I work with Adobe. I've been with ColdFusion and I've been there for about 8 years. Right, so I've been writing ColdFusion code for most of my life there, right? So I've met Adobe and I write ColdFusion code. So I've also played a part in the latest ColdFusion release that's gone out, ColdFusion 2018. I worked on a set of language features. I've worked on null support, type collections, right? So those are really good language features that I think you should also try out. I've also worked on connector, Tomcat integration, and the like. So those are my areas. I've also been with API Manager from the time of its conceptualization, right? And today I work with customers, some of you are here, to sort of understand what the needs are around API Manager, to help build a proof of concept, and solve issues around API Manager, try to cater to what they're looking for, and the like, right? So that's the topic for today. What does the API Manager do that I already learned? Right? How many of you think it's about ColdFusion API Manager? Someone, I would imagine all of you, right? That's what it's supposed to be. CF Summit and API Manager, what is it? Right? So my intention is not to cover just ColdFusion API Manager, but also a little on why APIs are important, why an API Manager is important in general, right? And also look at some features of API Manager that makes it what it is, right? So here are the things we'll be looking at today. We'll be looking at why APIs are important. We'll be looking at why API Manager is important, right? And like I said, I work with a certain set of customers. I will also pick a set of customer use cases to point out why people looked at APIs or API Manager. And eventually we'll have a feature walkthrough of ColdFusion API Manager and what it's all about, what it's all about, right? So I think this one image really sums up the space around APIs, right? If you have APIs, you're looking at a new set of customers, you're looking at a new set of data to work with, and you're also looking at a new revenue stream. We'll really look at how all of these materializes, right? We'll go deep into this. But what this image says in essence is that in the enterprise world, you really need to have APIs to do something meaningful. Let me take a small little example on a personal standpoint. I was looking for this fitness tracker. I was looking to buy a fitness tracker, right? I've probably owned about 3 generations of Fitbits. Not really a fan, it probably lasts for 1.5 years, right? So I like the Garmin fitness tracker, really cool watches. There's the Apple iWatch, right? The style version. So I was looking for this fitness tracker and eventually I ended up buying a Fitbit, right? Like I said, it's not really the device I wanted, but I still ended up buying it for one reason. And the one reason is that it integrates with some services I already use, right? There's a gym I go back to at home, back in India, right? The gym has an app. The app connects to Fitbit to sort of figure out how well my workout was. Fitbit connects to Strava, an app I use for cycling. Right? So Strava has all of my cycling data except for the heart rate, which it pulls from Fitbit, right, to better measure what my workout was. Right? So for this one single reason that it integrates well with other services I use, I bought Fitbit. Right? That's one use case. But there really are bigger use cases in the enterprise world. We'll be looking at some of those. Before we delve into some of these points, let me pick another customer use case. Right? It's not really a customer use case, it's a customer problem. There was this customer we were talking to, a decently large organization in the US, and they faced this problem, not really a problem, they wanted to share a set of data with another department in their organization. Right? And they had to do it quickly. What they ended up doing is they shared access to the database. Right? Who does that? That's not the way to go about it, right? So the real way would have been to build an API and expose data in a controlled manner and expose selected data, not the entire data. You don't want to give right access to database, for example, right? So that's one use case, and that's why we talked to them and they started building APIs. That's a smaller use case, but here is one use case that I think is a reason why people would want to build APIs today. Distributed applications. Right? So today, nobody builds monolithic applications. You probably are building an application which has a web interface which is being used by your customers. Right? But you also have a desktop application that is being probably used by administrators. Right? And now maybe you're coming up with a mobile application that again is going to be used by your customers. So what you're looking at is multiple front ends for your application, right? And such an architecture is possible only when you build an application in a distributed architected way, right? And the way to go about this would be APIs, right? Microservices is the other reason. We have a set of sessions on microservices here at CF Summit. I believe one is going on in the other hall. You're not missing anything though, because tomorrow there's going to be another session on microservices by my colleague, Nimit Sharma, right? So that's going to be tomorrow. He'll be covering microservices in much detail. He'll be looking at Docker, container world, and those kind of things. But in one line, if I were to describe what microservices are, microservices in essence are services, extremely small services that do one specific task. It doesn't do everything under the world. It just does one specific task. And a culmination of multiple web services constitute an application, right? So that's how people are building applications today. And if you were to build applications that way, APIs would be one way to build microservices. You could also be looking at better ways for third-party integration. Let me just pick one customer use case. Another customer in the US, right? So they are into the retail industry. And they need to talk to vendors to sort of update an inventory or maintain an inventory, right? And this is how they went about it before. They had actual people sitting at a desk who were calling vendors once in a while, getting information about whatever the inventory was, and maintain an Excel sheet where all of this can be maintained, right? We talked to them, sensitized about the benefits of API. They went about building an API, and what they eventually came up was an application that used APIs to update a database, right? So they built a lead system, now no more Excel updation. There's one single database, a central repository, so people are updating data, and the same database is getting updated. That's what they came up with, right? Now, they also went about sharing this API to their customers, to the vendors, right? So, sorry. So the vendors did not have to wait for a call and give the information to the customer, but they could integrate the API into their existing system to update the inventory automatically. Right? So that's one of the use cases. You could also use APIs as a channel for increased customer reach. What I mean by this is that you could build APIs to facilitate building of applications such as mobile applications, which could serve as a new avenue to reach out to your customers, right? Mobile application could be one thing. You could actually facilitate building of multiple such avenues with APIs. So in fact, this is not building or facilitating or creating one channel for increased customer reach. In essence, it is facilitating creation of multiple channels for customer reach. Right? And you can also use it as a source of revenue, right? So the previous example I picked, the vendor communication for updating an inventory. So this customer, he built a robust mechanism for updating an inventory, but he also went about charging a premium for the vendors to update the inventory with an API, right? For one, it made his own work simple. But he also charged a premium to make the vendor's work simple. That's only one example. Once you look at an API, there could be multiple different scenarios where you could go about monetizing your API. Now, if you were to look at APIs, REST is one way to build APIs, right? You have REST APIs. You also have SOAP APIs, but I think REST APIs are becoming increasingly common these days. Right? Everybody uses REST APIs. And if you were to to build REST APIs, you would not be looking at building REST APIs, the way you know to do it, but REST APIs would need to be standards compliant, right? To ensure that it works well with other technologies, you've got to be standards compliant, and here are some of these standards, right? You've got to have an HTTP method, right? You've got to have a status code that sort of signifies or denotes whether your web service call went through successfully or not. Right? So we'll be looking at some of these in a little while, but the essence here is that when you build APIs, you've got to be building APIs in a standards compliant way, and here are some of the standards. Now, if you were to build APIs, how many of you build APIs today? Cool? Not many, but you probably know how easy it is to build APIs with ColdFusion, right? It's extremely easy to build standards compliant REST or SOAP services in ColdFusion, and it's as simple as defining a function with a set of attributes. Let's take an example. See, you have this function in the CFC, right? This function called getCustomers, which just does a query for customers and returns back some data, right? And say this function is in a CFC. To convert this function to be a REST compliant service, all you would need to do is define a new set of attributes, HTTP method, right? REST path that produces. Of course, you have more set of attributes, but this is the minimum that's required. A HTTP method attribute that signifies what is the HTTP REST method that's being used. Is it a GET, which signifies that data is being consumed from a server? Or is it a POST, which signifies you're pushing some information into the server, right? You could also see what the REST path is, which is effectively the relative path at which your web service is accessible, your REST service is accessible, right? And you could also pass parameters in there, customer ID being one of them in this case. You also have produce this attribute, which signifies what is the kind of data that's being returned. So it could be a parsable format such as JSON, or it could be also another format such as XML or even plain text. But this one page may be specified, right? What ColdFusion does is that when you're returning customers, which is effectively a CF query, right? ColdFusion detects that the intended output for this function is JSON, and it automatically transcodes this into JSON and sends it back, right? So you're not really doing much in terms of modifying the data. You're just defining a new set of attributes on a function in an existing CFC and converting that to REST API, right? So that's how simple it is. Now, we understood, this has been there forever, right? How long? 5-6 years? This is how easy it's been to create REST APIs with ColdFusion for all this time, and most of you are already using it. But we really wanted to understand what are the problems people face when you're building REST APIs. REST APIs are, of course, important for the reasons I previously mentioned, and we wanted to go the full length and help people build REST APIs in an easy fashion, the reason for which ColdFusion is popular today. That's the reason we came up with REST Play, right? The REST Playground is available in ColdFusion 2018 onwards, and what it does is that it helps you manage REST services exposed in ColdFusion, right? It also is a platform on which you could test APIs that you're building, right? So for those of you who have been building REST APIs, if you recollect, once you build a REST service, put it in a directory, you would need to go to the ColdFusion administrator and point to that directory, and you will refresh it every time you change the web service or change the code, basically, right? With REST Play, given that you have developer mode on, which is probably the case if you're building something, you would not need to refresh anything. REST Play will take care of it, right? And REST Play is also a place, like you see in the screenshot, where you can actually test the API, right? So you can actually, while building your API, write a little bit of code, go to REST Play, test it out, not working, come back, change the code, go back and ensure it's all working fine, right? So that's how seamless it gets. Now it sounds very simple, but what you would have to do in previous versions of ColdFusion is this. You write a bit of code, go to ColdFusion Administrator, refresh the web service, go to a utility, external utility, which you probably don't have an insight into. Postman could be one of those utilities. So you would need to point to the REST service from Postman and test it out over there. Not working, come back, change the code, again go to ColdFusion Administrator, etc., etc. Right? Let me not even go to the full length. Right? So that's how simple it is with ColdFusion 2018. All you would need to do is test ColdFusion web services inside a utility provided by ColdFusion. There's this RESTplay, it's a browser-based application, right? So there's nothing in here right now. I just click on the plus icon there. It gives me the same options that was there in ColdFusion Administrator in previous versions. I'll just copy the path at which my web service is. I'll go just put it back. I'll specify the hostname and port for the ColdFusion service. 8503 is where my server is running. Service mapping, I'll call it bookstore. Right? If I were to look at what this ColdFusion service is all about, it's just a set of 3 CFCs. There's a book CFC, there's a customer CFC, and there's a lend CFC. Right? It's probably descriptive by now. It houses a set of customers, API to get and put and post and delete customers, a book web service, and a lend service, which sort of keeps a track of which book is lent to which customer. Right? That's as simple as it gets. The API itself is not very elaborate. It just denotes how an API could be built. So there's a CF component. It's in the tag syntax so that it's sort of easily readable. You have the CF component. And there's an attribute there that says REST equal to true, which makes it a REST service. It just makes the component a REST service, right? And you have a CF function inside it, which has the attributes that I previously mentioned. The attributes being the HTTP method, right? Produces, REST path, right? So these are the things that define what a REST service is at a function level. So that's what the CFC has. And let me get back to RESTplay, right? I just pointed to the directory. It's imported in RESTplay, and you see there's a bookstore web service that's imported. It has 3 endpoints listed under it: book, customer, and lend. Let me get to the book web service. I click on get, right? And there are a set of things that are sort of auto-populated for me. The request type is get. Like I said, it could be get, post, put, delete, anything. Right? In this case, it's get. There's also a REST path that follows it. This is where my web service is accessible. Now, because this is a REST service, REST get service, I can just copy paste this URL into the browser and probably it returns a just response. But that would not be the case with post or put request, right? Where you're sending information to the server. It also accepts the parameter book ID. Now, in my CFC, I've mentioned that this book ID parameter is optional, right? So I could just do a send on this, and it returns a set of data. Now this is JSON response, right? ColdFusion is ensuring that what my web service returns is actually a JSON because I've specified, I require a JSON. I could also give a parameter, and it just returns back one little entry, right? Now, this is a tool that's available in ColdFusion 2018, and it's extremely simple to use. So, if you're building your services, I would recommend that you look at this utility. So, like I said, the ColdFusion is a popular platform to build REST services, and we're not just coming up with it, right? We ran surveys which sort of validated whether or not REST service is important to ColdFusion customers, and here's what we found. We found 70% of ColdFusion customers already built APIs. We didn't really translate in this room, but that's what it is, right? So 70% of ColdFusion customers actually build APIs, and 50% of these customers actually expose it externally. And why is exposing an API externally important? It's because you have to deal with a whole set of new considerations that come into place when you're exposing an API publicly. Right? We'll be looking at some of these considerations in a little while. We also looked at a set of a new set of data for when we ran the survey. right? We also looked at why people are building APIs. And the biggest reason was because people wanted to build mobile apps. Mobile apps that interacted with the server for some data, right? That was the biggest reason for ColdFusion customers to build APIs. The other reason was also reduction in cost. So which means you're building an API for a specific reason, and tomorrow if you want to have the same functionality in a different application, you're not rebuilding anything, you're not copy pasting anything, you're just probably invoking the same API that already exists. Right? People also build APIs to interact or build an integration with other IT systems. Right? These could be things like AWS or Salesforce, for example. You could use Salesforce APIs, yes, but you could probably build an extension which uses APIs from your application to pull data, for example. Right? That's another reason why customers build APIs. They also build APIs for functional isolation and reuse. What I mean is basically I'm getting back to the microservices point I spoke about. Right? People build APIs to ensure some functionality is isolated, right? It's not dependent, you're not copy pasting code and putting credentials all over the place, it's isolated. That's the other reason. Data sharing, right? When you share data, you want to be absolutely sure about what data is accessible by people who have access to the data, right? You don't want to be sharing employee salary details with someone who's trying to build one-time authentication integration for some other application, right? You don't want to be sharing data that's not relevant to other people, right? So that's the other aspect. Now, those are the reasons why APIs are important to customers. We looked at why APIs are important, some of the reasons, I think all of you concur with that. We looked at how simple it is to build ColdFusion REST APIs. We also looked at RESTplay, which is an easy way to test APIs when you're building it, and also when you try to validate it once it's built. Right? But we also went a step further. We tried to understand what are the other problems when people are building APIs. Right? You're building an API. The next part is exposing the API, providing access to people who want to access your API. Right? And here's what we found. People are concerned that the infrastructure they use to expose the API, right, that needs to be secure. When I say secure, it is the infrastructure that needs to be secure. You don't want to be exposing API that allows access to a bot, for example, that's trying to load it with traffic 10,000 times in a second, right? You don't want a web service to help bring down your server, for example. Right? So that's a secure infrastructure. It gets deep. There could be things like XML threat protection, for example. There could be headers that could be sent to crash your server, for example. Right? There are all sorts of security threats. Those are the things that people are concerned about. And you couldn't possibly control all of this or handle all of this in your API code. Right? That will not happen. There's an evolving world, and you can't be redoing this in every API you build. People also think monitoring applications was a problem. You build APIs, okay, simple. But once you expose APIs, how is it that you get to know who's using the API? Right? You got to keep a tab on who's using the API, to what extent, right? What if you come up with a new version of the API? You got to be sure that no one else is using your old API for you to push a new API into the system. Right? You don't want to break someone's code just because you updated your API. Right? So that's the other reason monitoring could be useful. Access control is the other important aspect. So when you build an API, you want to give authenticated access to your API. It could be as simple as an API key. Right? So you pass in a parameter which has a specific API key, and only then you return a right response or you error out. Right? So that's one case. The other case could be different authentication mechanisms. I'm sure all of you work in enterprise worlds today. OTP has become extremely common, right? So you are redirected to a portal, and that's the way you're authenticating requests to different portals today. Right? So you might want to do it that way. Now, all of these things keep evolving, like I said, and it's not practical to keep building it or implementing these kind of things in your everyday APIs. Throttling is the other reason. Like I said, you do not want to be giving access to an API to a bot that's invoking your API 10,000 times a second, right? You want to place specific constraints on how often your API is invoked. It could be 10 times in a second. It could be 10,000 times in a year, right? So these are the things that you want to have a control over. And you might want to have this limit as a different set of attributes for different set of customers, right? Maybe you have an application that needs access at a more frequent interval than the other, for example. And the other problem is also about maintaining a developer website. Now, building an API is easy, and by the looks of it, when you look at an API, you don't get to know that the book ID parameter in my previous example was optional or not, right? That's that information available, it's not, right? Now, if you're building an API, and if the API is being accessed by a mobile developer who's sitting on the next desk, it's probably not a problem, right? It'll just reach out to you. But it is a big deal if you're building APIs that will be accessed by customers who you probably have not seen in your lifetime, right? And the only way to go about it is to maintain a documentation which says, this is the API, these are the parameters, and this is the expected output, right? And you could possibly have a developer sit and write all of these every time he builds an API. Right? Maybe once, twice, but when the world is moving towards a microservices world, you really think someone will write this? No. And that's the reason we came up with ColdFusion API Manager. Now, these are the reasons we thought APIs were a problem for customers, because they saw, overruns in implementing APIs and providing access, etc., etc. Right? So, ColdFusion API Manager was aimed at resolving these specific problems. And if there's one thing that you could take away from this session, I think it's this level, right? The reason being, these are the problems that we heard from ColdFusion customers, and these are the problems that ColdFusion, I think, solves today, right? So, I think the bigger problem here that we're looking at is that ColdFusion API Manager is a solution, it's a brilliant solution no doubt, but people do not see why they should use an API Manager, right? Because if it's an API key, we in fact had a customer, right? He already had API keys in place, and he was also distributing API keys to his customers. And here's how he was going about it. He had an API key that was hard-coded in his API code, and every time he had a new developer who wants access to API, he would generate an API manually, come and copy-paste that key into his API code, and maintain a little array inside his API code that was used to validate. Not really maintainable, is it? Right? So, I think the real reasons to use an API manager are here, and I think people will see value in it once APIs get broader and you build applications around APIs. So, a little about ColdFusion API Manager. It's available ColdFusion 2016 onwards, right? It's not a new thing. It's not out just now. It's already there in ColdFusion 2016. And the important thing is this, you already have access to API Manager if you have a ColdFusion 2016 license, right? It's not a new solution you're not buying, you're not going to pay or buy a new license, you already have access to it if you're a ColdFusion user. And it's used to manage different sets of APIs, right? It could manage REST APIs, it could manage SOAP APIs. It could also manage APIs that are not created with ColdFusion. And that's an important aspect as well. In the keynote, we were looking at a slide which spoke about ColdFusion API Manager being used for ColdFusion and .NET services, right? I think that's really important because you will not have APIs from one platform in a large organization, it will be spread out. This is one platform you could use to consolidate all APIs and expose it to people who are trying to access your APIs in an organized fashion, right? And if you were to put it in one statement, API Manager is a platform that helps you publish, browse through APIs, and subscribe to APIs, right? And there's a screenshot, and one of the reasons one of the core pillars that we kept in mind while building API Manager was that it needs to be simple. And that's the UI. You see, it's simple, right? You may not understand everything that's in there, but at least it's simple. There's not a whole lot of things that, goes out of it. So a little more about ColdFusion API Manager. It's an integrated platform that helps you design, build, and manage APIs. When I say design, API Manager gives a UI that sort of shows what is the right specifications to use. Once you use API Manager, you get to the design part because API Manager helps you architect your APIs in a way that's standard. Now implement, because you are ColdFusion users, right? You already built ColdFusion APIs, right? That's the implemented part. And with API Manager, you go the full length and manage it. Now, if you were to look at API managers in the world today, this is not the one API manager that's out there. Pradeep said we interrelate into the game. What that means is that there are a whole set of different API managers out there, right? But if you were to do a feature parity comparison with other API managers, I think it's on par with one of the most prominent API managers out there. I'm saying this because we have customers who are moving from these prominent solutions into API Manager. And there's not one-off case, it's a trend, right? People are moving into ColdFusion API Manager because it has a feature parity with other existing solutions, and also because it's good, and also because they already have access, right? And here are the three pillars that we kept in mind while building. Like I said, it had to be simple, it had to be fast, because you don't want to be introducing a large overhead because you put an API Manager in front of your APIs, right? And it also needs to be scalable. When you are serving a large customer base or a large application which is accessing your API at a much higher frequency, you want to ensure that your API does not go down just because a lot of people are accessing it. It needs to be scalable, right? It's an on-premise solution. One of the solutions from which customers are moving over to ColdFusion API Manager is AWS API Gateway, right? If you are on AWS API Gateway is probably the de facto option, right? Because it's just there, it's easy, right? But it's also on AWS and it comes with a set of restrictions. It's a hosted platform and you have to work around with whatever constraints are provided on the hosted solution. We have customers moving to ColdFusion API Manager. One reason could be the timeouts on AWS API Gateway are limited by what the platform defines it to be. You might have APIs that run beyond 10 seconds, right? That might be the nature of API, right? But when you have an on-premise solution, you can be sure that you have control over every aspect of how you expose APIs because it's an on-premise solution. Every setting can be given. The other aspect also is that it's well documented, right? So it's well documented, like ColdFusion, it's all hosted, so you could go back and check back on the aspects of API Manager. Let's do a feature walkthrough of what API Manager provides, right? We've been talking about security, that is one. When I say security, it's not just giving access to things like, or generating things like API keys, right? We also do basic authentication, which deals with integrating with the data stores that you have in your organizations today. It could be a LDAP user store, right? Maybe all employees in your organizations are tracked in an LDAP user store, right? So API Manager could connect to this LDAP user store and possibly instantly give access to your entire organization, right? Of course, there are things like permissions that you can work with. There's also OAuth. So API Manager comes with a bundled-in OAuth server, which handles things like your single sign-on, right? API Manager handles it out of the box. There's also things like SLA, right? Service Level Agreement. When I say SLA, what I mean are the throttling and the rate limits that I previously spoke of. You want to have specific constraints on how often customers use your API, right? You could use API Manager to manage your APIs, right? You could use API Manager to maintain different versions of your APIs. So you bring up a version, you publish it, everybody's using it, then you publish a new version, and you don't deprecate the previous version until you're sure that everybody has moved over to the new API. You can do things with this. Right? You can also have a life cycle around APIs. Life cycles being APIs could be in the draft state, the published state, then you could deprecate it, right? And eventually when you're sure nobody is using it, you retire the API. Right? You could engage developers in a better fashion. Like I said, ColdFusion API Manager provides an auto-generated portal that sort of denotes where your API is, what are the parameters it requires, and so on and so forth. Right? So you don't want to have customers writing all of this, like I said. But API Manager knows about all of these aspects because you're defining all of it in API Manager in a developer kind of way. Right? You're not writing some theory, you're putting parameters the way you want it. And there's a set of documentation that's auto-generated. You could measure impact with the help of analytics. Now there are three different roles in the API Manager. There is the administrator who manages the whole system. Like I said, it's an on-premise solution. So there needs to be a super user who sort of has control over a global, from a global perspective. There is also the publisher who publishes API, right? So analytics could be viewed at the publisher level when he sees analytics for the APIs that he publishes. There's a subscriber who sees analytics for the APIs that he's subscribing, right? So different analytics for different roles. And like I said, you could also expose SOAP APIs with API Manager. There's a differentiator here though. I think this really is a differentiator. Not really, I have not seen another solution that gives this feature. API Manager is capable of exposing a SOAP service as a REST service to your clients. Right? So for those of you who have built mobile apps, you know how hard it is if you were to consume a SOAP web service on a mobile client. Right? So for a scenario like this, you could use API managers to act as the pipe which is translating the SOAP web service to a REST service which is accessed by your clients. And of course, you have the ColdFusion advantage. Initially, I said you can use API Manager with APIs exposed by any technology stack. If you're using ColdFusion, there's a seamless way to use APIs. Now, all of this comes with internal APIs. What I mean is, there are APIs for API Manager, right? So you can use API to create an API in API Manager. Now, this is really important because we have customers. I'm picking from examples that we've seen. Customers are using APIs of API Manager to automatically expose only with API Manager when an API is created, right? So it falls into DevOps workflow. Right, so those are the kind of things you could do with API Manager, and the APIs are pretty seamless. Now, if you were to talk of performance, which I think is really critical in an API Manager, right? Here are some stats for a single node of API Manager. Like I said, it's scalable, so there could be multiple nodes, but a single node could serve 500 concurrent users. Concurrent users, not really requests, right? Concurrent users. It could also serve 20,000 requests per second. These are metrics based on what we have tested. We have actually put in a lot of traffic to API Manager and sort of calculated how well this thing fares. We saw a latency of about less than 14 milliseconds, right? But this, again, when a lot of data was pumped in, we have customers reporting latencies of less than 5 milliseconds, which is almost negligible. And what this all translates to is that you could actually serve 2 billion requests per day. And the fact is, people are already serving about 1.5 million requests per day in production, right? All of this is not made up. It's all there in a white paper that's published. Like Pradeep said in the keynote, we are probably the only API management platform that publishes a white paper as to how well it performs, right? So all the stats are right there. It's on adobe.com/ColdFusion on the link that's highlighted. It's not really highlighted in the screenshot, but yeah, you get the different color there. So you could go there and read all through the thing. And our conclusion with this whole effort was that API Manager is really an ideal solution that adds values to APIs with minimal performance overhead. the real reason for which it is designed. Right? Let's get to a quick walkthrough of how API Manager fares when you're trying to import an API. Right? So the moment I install, here's how the portal looks. Don't pay real attention. One second. Yeah, good now. Don't pay real attention to what the URL is. It's hosted on my local machine. But like ColdFusion, you can expose it with a domain on an IIS site. Right? So you can do all those integrations. But here's how the portal looks. I could log in, and this is how my page looks. Right? So there's an API catalog. There's no APIs. I can go to create an API. Here are different ways in which I could create APIs. I could create an API from scratch, when I actually define what the API endpoint is, what parameters are required, etc. Or I could import APIs that are already exposed in ColdFusion. I could import from a Swagger document. Now, in fact, in this conference, I spoke to a lot of you on what a Swagger document is. Right? So Swagger is a specification that defines what a REST service is. You could import SOAP APIs, and like I said, the differentiating feature, you could create REST APIs from our existing SOAP API. Now let me go with the second option, possibly the most used option by ColdFusion developers, import REST API from ColdFusion. Click on it. It shows me a ColdFusion server that I've already linked with API Manager. I just expand it. I have the bookstore there. Bookstore, if you recollect, was the name I gave when I exposed with the REST plain application. Right? So I just click on import, and a set of things are already pre-populated. Right? I have the API name, version, things like that are pre-populated. I could go to security. Now there are a set of ways in which you could secure an API. API key being the simplest of them. Of course, you could connect it with a NDAP user store to sort of authenticate users who are there in the NDAP user store. You could also write the database, right? That has a username, password, and things like that. API Manager would connect to the database and do all the username validation, password validation with an OAuth workflow, right? You could do all that. Let me just go with the API key here. I'll just say apply to all resources because I want to override, I want to push this setting to all resources that are already present. You have the cost setting, right? You know exactly what HTTP methods to allow for this API. You know all the HTTP headers that need to be allowed, right? So you don't want information that should not be sent to your API. You have SLA plans, right? Let me just pick the first plan here. If I were to sort of zoom in, right? The silver plan specifies a certain limit. It says if you were to use the silver plan, you'll only be able to access this API 80 times in a minute. And there's also a throttle limit, which is over a broader period of time, which is about 50,000 requests in a month, right? So if you were to monetize on APIs, you need limits like this. Because when you sign an agreement with your vendor, you're going to place a limit on how often he's going to access the API. You're going to say, pay me $10, access this API 50,000 times in a month, right? And then you have caching. So API Manager is capable of caching requests, right? So if you have data that's not going to change in 2 days, for example, data will be cached in API Manager, and the request will not even go until your API endpoint. It will not even go into your ColdFusion server, right? And then you have resources. These are the things that I created or viewed in RESTplay. These are auto-populated into API Manager, right? Book being one of them. Let me just expand it. And you also have the parameter that's already in there. Is it required? No, it's not checked, right? So that's only one aspect. You could also have different attributes mentioned here, right? There are a whole set of things. You could read in documentation. I'll just mention one, the map name, right? Your API endpoint might have a specific endpoint path. You might want to change it at the API Manager level. So that's something you can do with map name, right? And of course, you have the endpoints. Now, this is where my REST service is accessible. Now, in an ideal world, you will have failover URLs, right? If a URL is not accessible, you sort of fail over to another URL that might be accessible. So those are the kind of things you can do in API Manager. You could add a new field over here. Suppose you have a cluster of ColdFusion servers, you could also use API Manager as a load balancer, right? So you could use API Manager as a load balancer with multiple algorithms, round robin and weighted round robin, right? So you can define different weights for different endpoints, and that's how API Manager reaches out to endpoints. Let me delete this off, and let's suppose to HTTP URL. And you also have API endpoint authentication, right? When you use API Manager, you want to ensure that all your vendors or your clients are accessing your API through API Manager only, right? They should not be hitting your API, the server directly and sort of bypassing API Manager, right? So you can set up an authentication mechanism between API Manager and your server, right? Two of these authentication mechanisms are a shared secret, when a secret key is shared between your servers, or it could also be client authentication, which effectively is two-way SSL authentication, right? And then you have policies. I'll come to this in a minute. Let me publish this API. Right, the moment I publish, I could also test it. If I were to test it, I just expand the resource I want to test. There's a book ID. I'll not give anything for now. I'll call the API and you see the response. Right? Now, if you were to expand the request details, it has a different path here. It's not going to be your API endpoint. It's not going to be a ColdFusion server. It's going to be your API manager server. Right? So that's with creating an API. Let me just dwell a little into policies. We have a set of policies that will be created that can be applied to different APIs. Right? Policies are around certain security mechanisms that can be put in place. Right? Security policies that control what your JSON structure limits are. One attack that's possible is that if you pass an extremely large JSON file, right, your servers could crash because you cannot handle it. Maybe it's not really about the kind of data you send. It could be a 5 KB data that's sent, but it could still crash your server if it's nested in a way that your server cannot handle. Right? So those are the kind of limits you can define with policies. Right? You also have data transformation. Let me pick one of these, JSON to XML. Right? Like you saw, the API I created returned JSON response. Now, say my client cannot understand JSON responses, he needs XML, right? I don't have to change my API. I go here, I just say, I just give a name, I say policy 1, right? I just save it, and say I go back to my API, edit it, and go to policies. Now, I can put a data transformation rule in either the request flow or the response flow. In this case, I'm returning a JSON response, right? So I'll just say, I'll drag and drop this thing. I say, put a JSON to XML policy when data is being returned, right? That's all I do. I save it. Let me go back, test this API, expand this, and just run the API call, and I have an XML response, right? So that's how cool it is. And that's really important when you're operating with a different set of clients with a different set of requirements, right? And of course, there's analytics. I go to analytics. Now, do I know how many times I actually moved the API? I do, because I just did it 2 times, but yeah, that's what the analytics dashboard also says. Analytics dashboard shows insight into how many times your API was accessed by which subscriber, right? You can get really deep. You can get to know how many times your API is errored out, right? You will then know how to scale your endpoint, for example. Right? So those are the kind of things you could do. Let me get back to my presentation. Yeah. So here's a really big customer that we work with, right? One of the first customers for API Manager. Not sure if one of you are here, but Market America. They migrated from Layer 7, another extremely popular API management platform, to API Manager. And here's what they saw. They saw 35,000 annual savings with the move, right? So they're not going to pay for Layer 7 anymore, right? ColdFusion API Manager is something they already have access to. They're going to use the same platform, and they saw some cost savings. They also saw a 25% increase in developer productivity, because Layer 7 is a complicated system, as is most other popular API managers, right? They had a dedicated team to manage API Manager, right? So they didn't need any of those right now because it's just a portal now that any publisher can manage it by himself, right? So they got a 25% increase in developer productivity. I'm not even counting the annual savings here in terms of developer productivity. They also saw 87% API latency reduction, right? That's huge. 87% latency reduction, that's huge. In fact, also think they have a session here that speaks about how they went about using API Manager and how it benefited them. That would be a good session to attend. And it's a customer case study that's actually published in the URL that's below, right? You can have access to it once the slides are shared. There's also this customer that we work with who's trying to use APIs to serve an extremely large set of requests at a single point in time, right? He expects 20,000 simultaneous connections in parallel, right? And that's where he's planning to use API Manager, right? That's the kind of load that API Manager can take. We also have this customer who's using API Manager to expose REST services built with ColdFusion, .NET, and Django, right? Django being a platform in Python. They have all of these technologies being used in their organization, and API Manager is one platform that's sort of exposing all of these APIs, right? And it also is one platform that subscribers can go to, one single platform, browse through all APIs and subscribe to the APIs that you want, right? It gets simple. So we're almost done. I probably overshot. Now, if I were to talk about the next steps, right? I would say if you are building a monolithic application, not a lot of you raised hands when I asked if you're building REST APIs, right? If you're building monolithic applications, I think it's important to look at REST APIs and start building APIs, right? Again, Nimit Sharma's talk tomorrow will be a good session to attend. He talks about moving existing monolithic applications to a REST world, right? Or if you already have APIs, I would suggest you really explore RESTplay and API Manager. Both are brilliant solutions that really solve problems, right? It's not built for the sake of it. It solves a set of problems. Now, it's also easy to try out API Manager, right? So last year I spoke about Docker and containers and all of it. We have a Docker container for API Manager as well. So if you're acquainted with Docker, you can actually get an API Manager instance up in like 60 seconds, right? It's that simple. It's all about running one Docker pull, Docker run command, if you know Docker. And it's extremely simple to get started with that. There's a link. We host it on Bintray, ColdFusion images as well as API Manager images. And like I said, before I started off, I work with customers. We work with customers to understand how API Manager plays a role in their organization, right? We understand what the problems are, how it helps. We have in fact given or built features because someone saw a need for it and we understood that need and we felt it's genuine, right? So that's the extent to which we work with customers, and we would like to work with you as well if you're interested in using API Manager, right? So of course you have the survey that you would need to fill in your mobile app. I would ask you to also scan this barcode. There's the link. Now this is not the survey that's there in your mobile app. It's a different survey, right? Just 4 questions. We just want to know if you're already using API Manager. Right? In which case we want to just talk with you once, understand what you think of API Manager, help make it a better solution, right? The other aspect of it is also that if you want to start using API Manager, just put in a word there, right? We do 2 things. We either work one-on-one with the customer, help them understand what API Manager is, and help build a proof of concept. That's one. And until they're stable, the engineering team, the people who actually build the product, will be in touch with the customer to ensure they don't get roadblocks, right? This is something we've been doing for 2 years, and we don't intend to stop until the platform is actually popular, right? Because it's a platform that actually solves problems, for the reasons I mentioned before, right? So that's all I have for today, but please do fill the feedback, and if you're interested in API Manager, I'm here, I'm at the booth. There's also a demo in the booth. I have this colleague, he's called DJ, not really the DJ who's going to play music at the party tonight, but his name is Deepraj. Yeah, so he's going to be there in the booth. He's going to be, he can lead you through an API Manager demo if you require. So that will be able to do. Yeah, so that's all I have.